we spent over $7 million bringing in transfer portal. So you need to understand the expectations are on you, and you've got to embrace them. Don't bring a kid in here that's not better than what we have. If we're going to pay somebody, they better jump off the page.
Hey everybody, Trey Wingo here. Welcome into a new episode of Straight Facts Homie, the podcast where we use data and statistical history and analysis to provide you insights and information onto why the things happen the way they did or how we think they will happen based on what the data tells us. We also do great conversations here with people in play in the biggest scenarios in sports. And if you like what you see here, make sure you click that like and subscribe button, especially on YouTube. It really helps us grow the show. Our conversation this week is with one of the best stories in college football. Over the years, after a stint on Matt Rhule's staff at Baylor, Joey McGuire has turned Texas Tech back into a powerhouse. And you need to understand where Joey came from. He was an extremely successful high school football coach at Cedar Hill in the state of Texas. You can live a very comfortable life for a long time being a successful high school football coach in the state of Texas. So what was it that made him make the jump to try the very, very unsure waters of college football? Well, that's a large part of our conversation with Coach McGuire. I hope you enjoy it. So, Coach, like less than a decade ago, you were an extremely successful high school football coach in the state of Texas. And now here you are having the Red Raiders at 9-1, square in the middle of the college bowl playoff situation, the college playoff system. How did we get here?
That's a great question. Man, my goal was to be a high school head coach, and I loved where I was at. I was at Cedar Hill for 20 years. I was a head coach for 14 years, and I had opportunities to move on and didn't. And then my 2016 was my son's senior football season, and I just knew throughout that season, I just kept saying, this is never going to be the same. I always wanted to coach him, and along comes this guy from New York. I thought it was the craziest hire ever outside the box. Matt Rhule gets hired at Baylor, and I'm literally talking to him the very next week. We got beat by DeSoto in the fourth round, and I'm talking to him the next week about coming to Baylor.
How did he know about you? Because obviously Matt had sort of been on a crescendo with the things he had done at Temple, and obviously we were very thrilled as an alum that he went to Baylor. But how did Matt find out about you?
Yeah, so Fran Brown, he's the head coach at Syracuse. He was his assistant head coach and corners coach, and he had come into the Metroplex. They get the job, and he comes in to recruit. He's in real quick, and so when he flies in, of course, you're over there by DFW, and you're Trinity, LD Bell, all that group. And he said every high school he went into, he said, "Have you gone to Cedar Hill yet?" And he'd be like, "Well, I'm going by there. What kind of players?" And he goes, "Well, no, they've got players, but the guy over there, he'll tell you everywhere to go. He'll tell you every player in the Metroplex you need to be on." Because that was one thing I tried to do. I tried to push our kids, but, I'll just tell you this. Kennedy Brooks, you remember the OU running back?
Sure, absolutely.
Well, his sophomore year, he has a huge game against us. And literally every single college coach that came through, I said, if you don't go offer Kennedy Brooks, and he was a sophomore, if you don't go offer Kennedy Brooks, you don't love football and you don't want to win. I said, he's absolutely incredible. And so I was kind of known a little bit for trying to help players, but help college coaches kind of map out the Metroplex and make sure they hit everybody where they need to hit. Fran calls Matt and goes, "Look, I don't know what the deal is about this guy, but I've gone into every school. You need to call him and at least talk to him." And that's kind of how everything got started.
Was there a sense of, I don't want to say trepidation, because for people that aren't familiar, and they need to be familiar, being a successful high school football coach in Texas is a good life. Like it's a good living and it's a good life, and you're a really high member of the community because of that success by that school. So when you started talking about the idea of maybe going on to the collegiate level, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, again, it really goes back. Like I had opportunities from 2006 to 2016. I had at least one offer. I almost went to Tulsa. Chad Morris went on the offensive side of the ball. I would have gone on the defensive side of the ball. 2014, I almost went to Texas with Charlie Strong, and
Sure.
that was my son going into his junior year. And I was like, man, that was always my dream, that he and I'm so blessed. He's my running backs coach. You know, he played there for Matt. Matt hired him at Carolina, hired him at Nebraska. Now I get to hire him. And so really through that season, it just seems like it was starting to change. Like I was like, man, the sideline's not going to be the same next year. And it was like perfect timing. If I'm going to take a shot at this, then let me go take a shot now. And got with the right person. I mean, Coach Rule poured into me on the things that I didn't know to get me where I'm at right now.
Well, for people that are unfamiliar, when Matt and you guys came to Waco, the program was in a bad state after everything that had gone on and the championships, and then the controversy surrounding Art Briles. What did you make out of those first couple of seasons where you guys went from nothing to a meteoric rise, especially for those of us that are alums watching the program turn around?
Yeah, it was, I always tell everybody, because people ask me about college football. Man, I've been in college football for 9 years. That year we had one recruit. It was Jalen Petrie that plays for the Houston Texans. And the signing day was February. So literally January was a blur because we were in every house all across Texas and everywhere else we could to find players. And it was just such a great mix of guys that were there that trusted us. The transfer portal, you could get kids to transfer, but they weren't eligible. So we were able to get like James Lockhart from A&M and Jalen Hurds that was at Tennessee to play receiver. And so we were able to get some guys like that. And then the guys that stayed and the young guys we got that first year, man, they just love football, and they bought into what Coach was, selling, and we had a good strength staff. They really grew. And then a guy that doesn't get enough credit player-wise, that just was a tough kid, gritty, is Charlie Brewer. I mean, that kid got the hell beat out of him.
Yeah, he sure did.
But he just got up, and everybody, they believed in him so much, and he was such a winner. So it was really such an incredible time. And, I remember that 2019 season. It's one of my favorite seasons in my 31 years of just guys that just were a part of the 1 in 11 and then turning it around and playing in the Big 12 championship and had an opportunity. We had OU down twice, regular season and in the, in the championship game, and just couldn't finish them off.
Oh, I remember that game in Waco. And I was we were cruising. I was like, yes, and then I was like, wait, stop. Let's go. Stop. Things must stop right now. That was an insane night for me. Coach, one of the things I always hate is when I hear people say, "Well, that guy's a self-made man, and that guy, did it by his own bootstraps." And there's something to that, but everybody needs help along the way. Yeah. And it sounds like Matt was a guy that really sort of showed you the things you needed to do. What are the things that Matt provided with you that helped you in your current situation now?
Yeah, the great thing, Coach and I, right off the bat, he interviewed me at IHOP in Hillsboro, and we had about 3 pots of coffee, and we were so like-minded as far as what football looks like and how you treat players. And about the 3rd week on the job, I'm walking by his office, and he said, "Hey, Joey, come in." And he said, "You're supposed to be a head coach." And I was like, "Well, I've been one. I just started college." And he goes, "No, you need to be a head coach. I'm going to show you what you don't know." And it had nothing to do with football. It was roster management, recruiting, how graduating players early can help you in recruiting and help them in life. Just so much of the stuff like that. And I don't know if I would have worked for somebody that, didn't have, he didn't have an ego whenever it came to me. Right. It was, he gave me so many things, to do and to help that way. And that's the stuff that, I don't think I'd be where I'm at if I didn't have somebody like that to show me the ropes.
All right, and that's enough about Matt, because I'm going to text him and I'm going to say, "Listen, we've been talking about you too much in this interview, so you need to stop and just go worry about what's going on in Nebraska." So if it was the right time to go from high school to college with Matt at Baylor, what made Tech the right fit for you?
Yeah, I'm a Texan. I've never been anywhere else. I was born in Texarkana, and
My mom's from Texarkana, by the way.
yeah. Hey, she's a rock star then, born in the red dirt in the 903. Yeah. I have so many connections to Tech. My best friend played here. I actually was transferring to Tech my junior year, and I met my wife, and she won out, and so
Always.
and like my daughter graduated from here. Two brother-in-laws. My nephew played for Cliff. My dog was born in Lubbock. Like, there was so many connections, and then whenever this job came open, I didn't see where it is now, but I did see what it could be and what Coach Leach, the way he had it going, and it was a really good fit for me and my wife. Like, it just Lubbock, Texas, and the people here, and so we went all in, man. I mean, I talked to Kirby on the phone, but everybody that I could get a hold of, but even before the interview that was on the interview committee, I called them, and told them, kind of like what I told you, like, hey, man, I'm supposed to be at Texas Tech, and went all in on the job.
One of the things I loved about when game day came to this past weekend, you made sure to point out that everywhere you go in Lubbock, it is clear that it is a Texas Tech town. Like, there are college towns, and then there are college towns.
Yeah.
And Lubbock, Texas is a college football, college basketball town in every way, shape, and form. How much has that helped you sort of develop this program, knowing the passion that is just there from the people that are in that community in West Texas?
Yeah, it's been absolutely huge because, one thing that we did do is, we didn't make any excuses of not getting recruits out here. But, whenever people were recruiting against us, they're like, hey, man, you're out here in West Texas. There's nothing out there, like that. And then when people get out here and we take them around the town and we get them to understand, like, the university is the center of this city, and this city and the surrounding area is just 300,000 people, so it's not this small, you're out in the middle of nowhere town. It actually is growing, and there's everything here, and it's an absolute incredible place. But then you go into restaurants, and they know who you are. Everybody's wearing the double T. I'll never forget, we were recruiting this kid. We're in a restaurant called Table 82, and the kid asked me, what's your favorite NFL team? And I said, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. And he was like, hey, me too. And I said, well, we're kind of like the Cowboys out here. Like, we are kind of the pro sport out here in West Texas. And he was like, and we get up and we walk out of this back room, and people start seeing me and some of the other coaches, and they start the Raider power chant. Yeah. And this kid's eyes got big, and he was like, and I said, I told you, man, football's important out here. And, that's just the feeling you get whenever you get people out here on campus.
Well, you're talking to someone who lived and grew up in college in the old Southwest Conference days. Like, that was some good times, man. You had all those Texas schools in Arkansas, and that was it. And every single university town in the old South had its own flavor, its own feel. And you try and tell that to people now with how, I don't say fractured, but how different college football is. I mean, for crying out loud, Oregon's in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just the Southwest Conference vibe, for people that didn't live through it or don't have an appreciation for it. It's really something, because it was just these Texas schools in Arkansas, and it was as tight-knit as you could possibly imagine.
Yes, sir. I grew up, I tell everybody, I grew up a Razorback fan, because we were in Texarkana, we're right on the border, and my mom's family's all from Arkansas.
Yeah.
Then my dad's family's all from Texas, and we had season tickets to we had football season tickets. So I grew up watching, Arkansas and Lou Holtz, and then whenever I was in high school, man, it was Juju Horshaw and Barry Foster, and that whole group, and that, man, it was such great, not just football, basketball. Whenever you think about the basketball games with Houston, and
Slamma-jamma, baby.
Yeah, and then you had 40 Minutes of Hell with Nola Richardson. And so I'm with you, man. That's what I grew up on.
And that really fuels your passion for this game when you saw how that sort of extrapolated on, and now you are here and you're really thriving at Texas Tech. How have you been able to get things turned around so quickly and get this to where we are? We're talking, top 10 school in the country in the rankings and squarely in the playoff picture.
Yeah, it starts with we have one of the best ADs in the country, and what's awesome, I work for a guy that gets it. His high school position coach, I was recruiting. He's retired now, but he was the head coach at Lufkin, and I'm talking to him about Kirby Hocutt, and I'm talking to somebody else, and I said, man, I'm just lucky because he gets it. And Coach Outlaw said, damn right he gets it. He wore a jock. And I started laughing. I was like, but he played football at K-State. He gets football. And it starts with the guys that were on that interview committee. Whenever I walk in there, you've got Dusty Womble. So every day I walk into the Womble Football Center. He's a guy that's a Red Raider, lives here in Lubbock. And then you turn around and Cody Campbell, and he was on that interview committee, and what he's done and his partners have done with the Matador Club, and so those guys are all in. And so whenever we were putting this team together over the last couple of years, and especially this year, I knew they had my back. Like, they literally were like, Coach, if this is what we need to do, then let's go do it. If these are the guys we need to bring in, let's go bring them in. If these are the coordinators we need to hire, because we had coordinator changes, then let's go find the best ones. And so, man, I'm lucky because I've got such great backing, and they believe in what we're doing.
Well, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is on the field. The proof is on what you did last weekend against BYU. And one of your favorite staples of sayings is expectations get coaches fired. What do you mean by that?
Well, some of that stuff of like, there's so much to where people expect, and if you don't embrace, like, we embrace those expectations because we understand, like, we had a great recruiting class, we had great guys coming back, and we had the number one transfer portal class in the country. We spent a lot of money. That's been documented of the amount of money we spent. They were talking last week. Defensively, we spent over $7 million bringing in transfer portal. So you need to understand, like, the expectations are on you, and you've got to embrace them. You can't run from them, and you can't try to push them down. I'm probably in the opposite, and sometimes, I don't know necessarily it gets me in trouble, but some of our fans have got on to me a little bit. I believe in what we're doing, and I'm an optimist. So, like, I'm going to sell those expectations, and then we got to go live up to them.
And you certainly have this year, and now you've gotten to this position where you do have that expectation for success with the team week in and week out. How do you translate that to the players so they understand, hey, what we've done so far is good, but to get where we want to go, it isn't good enough? Yeah.
I'm one of those people, man, like, I know a lot of coaches, well, not, some coaches are one way, some the other. I know my kids read that we're number 6 in the country, right? I know that they didn't see the CFP like live, but they watched some of it, because we were practicing. But we're going to talk about that, and one thing that we talked about at the start of the season was running toward those expectations, like embracing the pressure. And so I think because we talk about that and it's pretty free in our building that, hey, this is what we're trying to do, that it lessens some pressure, or at least we're all in that pressure cooker together, so they know that we're all in this together. Our guys have really embraced it, and they know what we're chasing. It was really cool. After the game, I'm in the locker room. I'm one of the first ones in the locker room, and Jacob Rodriguez is already in there, our linebacker. And I give him a hug and say, great job. And he goes, Coach, this is hitting our goal. Now, it was our goal to go 1-0, but it don't matter about beating BYU. We've got so much in front of us. So when you have one of your captains and a real vocal leader, saying that, then you feel good about talking about what's right in front of you and knowing that we've got to play at a really high level to get there.
It's almost as if you feel like, I want to make sure I say this correctly, you've done the job because now they're doing the thing that you needed to tell them, but they're telling it to you now.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot. Like, you want to have a player-led team.
Right.
And so you've got to give them a lot of responsibility. You got to trust them, but then you also got to help them and mentor. I have Dave Martin is my player development, and he helps with the safeties. And he meets with our 3 captains every Monday. And you're like, well, why don't you do that? I talk to those guys all the time. I want somebody else to hear what they're trying to tell them and how they're feeling as a team. And then I want them to they hear my voice all the time, and so I want them to hear somebody else's voice, but that voice is saying the same thing, and so it's really cool to be in a building right now to where you do have a player-led team. I could send out a text to my captains or my leaders and say, hey guys, I don't want to deal with this. Could y'all fix it? It's going to be fixed.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the transfer portal, and we mentioned the Southwest Conference. And for those that don't know, it might be a new thing to pay players over the table now. Yeah. There was a time where nobody did it better than the old Southwest Conference, especially SMU. Go look at the 30 for 30 Pony Excess. I mean, that's one of the greatest things of all time. So we're now in this situation where that's part of it, right? Money is a part of the landscape. And just so you know, I'm extremely happy kids are getting paid, because it was $1 billion industry that wasn't paying labor. But it becomes a quagmire at times. It becomes, okay, you're offering me this. Well, this school's now offering me this. I don't like what I'm doing here. I'm going to go into the transfer portal and see what somebody else is going to entice me to go somewhere else. So while I'm happy that there's a financial reward for the players for putting in the work, it also is becoming, well, what is it about? Is it about the dollar? Is it about the team? Is it about building something? How do you manage that in a very convoluted landscape where, quite frankly, the NCAA has said, y'all are on your own?
Yeah, it's, I'm with you. I mean, I wish years ago they would have already started putting this in place. It's amazing when we start thinking about back Ohio State, those guys got in trouble for selling their jerseys or whatever happened, or trading a jersey, and Manziel signing autographs. Like, I mean, you can go even farther back than that, but I think that's what's tough. It all kind of got dumped, and there was no plan or any kind of guardrails around it. There are more guardrails now when you're talking about the revenue sharing, and hopefully they continue to put more around it and kind of get this really to where, before, at least this year, but before, contracts that you signed in the NIL world really wasn't worth the paper that they were written on. Now at
Correct.
Least they are. I'll just tell you, I just believe that if you're treating players right and they're growing as men and they're growing as players, they're going to be happy. You have honest conversations. I tell my GM all the time, don't bring a kid in here that's not better than what we have. Like, I don't want guys to walk into our locker room and let's say he's getting paid X and a player that's already on my team's getting paid Y, and now that player on my team can come in and say, well, coach, man, man, you're paying that dude more and I'm just as good as him. It don't work that way around here. Like, if we're going to pay somebody, they better jump off the page, and then at least now Real recognizes, like, I'm not as good as that guy, or at least you can have the conversation like, come on, man, you're not. David Bailey leads the nation in sacks. You're not as good as David Bailey.
Right.
Don't come in here. Even a mom and dad can recognize that, which is hard to do. I think that's part of it. And then the one thing about us is everybody that works for Texas Tech football, the most important thing we have is our players. And so whatever your job is, they need to feel that you're here to help them be great at whatever your part is in their life. And we take a lot of pride in that. So I think these guys understand it, and we have a really healthy locker room.
It's interesting to hear you talk about that, because there have been a lot of stories out there about certain quarterbacks. Well, pay me this or I'm leaving, and all this kind of stuff. And there are hassles, but in a way, does it sort of help the kids because they get to understand an economic value maybe faster now than they would have before NIL came around, and they could understand the dynamics of, hey, the better you are, the more you're worth.
Yeah, and that's with everything that you do, and whatever they're going to do. We have so many people in our building that, they want to play on Sundays. Well, you better get used to this player making more than you. And you might not think it's right, but that's the way the world works, And so I do think that to an extent, it's one of the deals of right now just continuing to educate these guys. And there's different things that we've got to keep working on as a system, as far as I'm very much in favor of agents. I don't deal with them. My GM deals with them, but I want them to be certified, and I want them to have to go through something as far as the same as the NFL's guys do. I tell my guys all the time, man, you get an agent, how much are they charging you? And it's crazy what some of these kids are paying agent fee wise. And so we've got to get our hands wrapped around that. But you're 100% right. Whenever you start thinking about these guys, they're learning at a younger age and a different age of the value and what life is really like. And, the better you perform in any industry, the more you're going to get paid.
If there was one thing you would change about how NIL and transfer portal is on right now, what would be the McGuire mandate or the McGuire mantra that you would like to see change that would make not only your job easier, but maybe helping everybody sort of navigate this thing easier?
I think there's a big deal. I think we have to change the calendar, right? So here's what I would like to do. I would like to move every game to 0 week. So whenever we had the week like August 23rd, move everybody to that. Keep your buys the same, everything like that. That means that the conference champion would be played on Thanksgiving. Okay, so then you go into the playoffs, every how you look at it. Now we're playing every 7 days. Just like the NFL, you're going to get your bye, but if you don't have a bye and it's the wild card or whatever you want to call it, you're playing every 7 days. You could get football over at the 1st of January. This sport shouldn't be played in the second semester. Football is not supposed to be played in late January. College football is not. And so if you do that, now the portal window makes sense. So that's my first thing. And then my second thing is I do think you have to get some guardrails around the agents. And when you do those two things, then I think it's a lot more workable, especially with the calendar, because you think about it, the portal is going to open up, and I was in favor of a one-window portal, but it's going to open up January 2nd, and I'm hoping we're playing January 19th or 20th, whichever the national championship game is. And so we're going to be doing a lot of different work. And then you think everybody's like, well, all the teams that had buys lost last year. Well, it's different by having a bye after 2 weeks instead of almost a month layoff, And so some of that stuff doesn't make any sense other than that's how we've always done it. And how we've always done it's not going to fix our problems.
Oh, I agree. And I would love to see the calendar change, but obviously there are certain entities that are very influential that would I would love to see it change. Do you think it will, though?
I think it's going to be a couple years away. I think you've got to get the ADs and you have to get TV involved, because that's one of the reasons that the calendar stretched out the way it is, and I get it, but you're still going to have the same amount of games and everything like that. And so you got to get TV in with the Power 4 commissioners and hopefully, I think it's smart. I think it's, if we did it that way, then a lot of stuff would make more sense.
Well, as we're talking, we're a few weeks away from Thanksgiving here. You guys are 9-1, like I said, top 10 in the country. Obviously, you're getting a lot of attention. Game Day was recently there. We're having this conversation. Everyone knows where Texas Tech would like to be when it's all said and done. As you said, playing on January 19th. How do you enforce that message without overwhelming the kids with that message? Because to get to January 19th, there are a few hurdles still along the way.
Yeah, one of them's Central Florida. I know Coach Frost would love to kick my butt. I've known him for a long time. The one thing with us, and I learned this from Coach Rule, the one thing that Rule is really good at is branding. But if you go into our building right now, you're going to see 1-0, and it's going to have the UCF logo on it. And that's all you're going to see. And before our guys walk into the building on Sunday, all that stuff's taken down, and it's a bye week, so you're actually going to see 1-0, and it's going to say us. Like we've got to do a really good job on ourselves. But then that next Sunday, all that stuff's down, and West Virginia is going to be up there. We are very focused on what we have right in front of us. And I will say a couple of little things that has to do with like the Big 12 championship and everything like that, but it's always going to be followed up with, if we don't take care of what we have right in front of us, it's not going to matter, guys. So let's stick with, where our feet are. And our guys have really bought into that.
It's interesting because a lot of people hear that like, well, that's just silly, whatever. But it's true. Like to me, the little things always seem to make the biggest difference. And just it's like I play a lot of golf poorly, but I have to always tell myself, okay, the bad shot, that's gone, doesn't matter anymore. The only thing that matters is the shot in front of you. And I think just little things like that help drive home that message almost subconsciously without people really understanding it until they're sort of living it.
Yeah, the one thing with us, and it was the same way at Cedar Hill, and I'm talking about Coach Rule a lot because that's my dude. He reinforced, we don't overbrand. Like they don't hear a lot of different messages. Hey, let's start fast. Hey, let's finish strong. Hey, it is very simple. We want to be the toughest team, right? Our player coach's oath, they're 4 I will statements I got from Phil Snow. He's the DC there.
Oh, Phil Snow, sure, yeah.
Our plan to win and what's next. That's it. They don't hear anything else. They don't even, our verbiage, the way we talk to these guys and the way they talk to each other, it is really simple, and you don't hear a lot of other stuff. So it's never a point of like, well, what does he want me to do? Does he want me to start fast? Or are we going to go do this? Or what? It's very simple. The branding and the message it never deviates. It never deviates.
It's funny about that, and just to hear you say that is so true in almost every position of managerial power, no matter what the profession is, right? Whether it's a high school football coach, a college football coach, a CEO of a tech company. If you don't have the right message, nobody really understands.
Right.
And that's why communication is so important. You have to have sort of that clear idea to give your employees or your players the thing they need to be successful.
Yeah, and you do it in so many different ways. It just all comes back to I find ways I think I'm a PowerPoint expert, and I'm very creative with different videos and little cuts of just different things that I either send to the players or I do in our, whenever our team meeting on Tuesdays but it all goes back to everything I'm going to put on there ties into those 4 things, and that's it. It doesn't tie in anything else.
So as we sit here having this conversation, again, things are rolling high in Lubbock at Texas Tech and the things you're doing. If you had to go back and talk to yourself before you took the job at Cedar Hill to tell you, hey, things are going to go great there, but better things are ahead of you, what message would you give to that guy from 2011?
I think the biggest thing is, and I'm bad about this. My AD, Gina Farmer, used to say it all the time, man, Joey, take time to smell the roses. You've got to take a deep breath and appreciate where we're at. And I've done that at different times. In 06, we went 16-0. I was 34 years old. That season was a blur. I was so, I don't know if this is a good word or bad word, but I was so scared of messing up that I was so focused on what was next and getting the guys ready. And then, I said that to her one time and she goes, well, let's hold each other accountable to make sure we do that. I find myself even today, I probably didn't enjoy the BYU win as much as what I should have. But right now I really don't care. I'm focused on winning because I want to do something that nobody's ever done, and we have that opportunity to do it. We talk about that as a team, that we've got an opportunity to do something that nobody's ever done, and man, that's a cool thing. And so let's make sure we're enjoying it. Now I will tell you this: the players never feel me feeling nervous and stuff like that. I'm a goofball, man. I mess around and laugh a lot with the players when we're not on the field. Like I'm very light when it comes to the players and hug on them and love on them and everything like that. But it is cool that we have a chance to do something that hasn't been done here, and we're focused really hard on that.
It is interesting to hear you say that, because I can't tell you how many times, whether I've talked to a coach, a star athlete, or someone in the business world, they'll always tell you, instead of their successes, they'll remind you of their failures, right?
Oh,
they will always say, they'll always think about the thing that they didn't get as opposed to the things that they have achieved. And it's sort of a double-edged sword, right? Because if you stay satisfied, then you're afraid that, okay, now I'm good, I won't have the desire to go forward, but you don't want to not to appreciate those things that you've accomplished along the way either.
Yeah, you kind of turned a sword whenever you brought up that 2019 home game at Baylor. Yeah, I have a couple of those. Like I can literally close my eyes and think, in those moments. And so it is one of those deals, but it also it drives you to want to be better, and you just got to learn from them. You got to learn from games like that, and games from like Abilene beat me in 2009. We were number one.
See, you remember those.
Steve Warren, just stuff like that, man. But you got to learn from them, and make sure they don't happen again.
Well, you're doing a good job with that, as we said, top 10 in the country and squarely in the mix of what will be the whole show when it's all said and done. Coach, great chatting with you. I appreciate your time. Best of luck with the rest of the season, and we'll talk again soon.
You bet, man. It was an honor.
All right, once again, thanks to Coach McGuire for his time, and we'll see what happens the rest of the way down the stretch for Texas Tech and the Red Raiders. If you liked the show, and we sure hope you did, please click that like and subscribe button, especially on YouTube. It really helps us get our message out there to a broader audience. Once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Straight Facts Homie.